Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with cybersecurity leader, author, storyteller, and advocate Jeff Knight. He is a cybersecurity leader for a large health company, a Navy veteran, and a Ph.D. candidate researching cybersecurity leadership education. He is also the author of Maya the Malamute, A Spark of Courage, a children's book inspired by his therapy dog, and Frozen Frontlines, a historical fiction novel blending World War II history and the spirit of the Alaskan Malamute. Jeff leads Maya's Spark of Courage Foundation, inspiring hope in children through uplifting literature. With decades of leadership, cybersecurity, and nonprofit experience, he regards the truth and carries a reverence for faith, history, and honor that threads through every story he tells. From his base in Iowa, we get into a great story. Enjoy this interview. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, so we're pretty close by each other here. So I'm looking forward to getting into your life as a storyteller and advocate and all the wonderful things that have led up to who you are today. And to begin that journey, I want to know, 5 years ago, this pandemic was changing our entire lives. How did you survive the pandemic of 2020, and how has it radiated into your world in 2025?
Yeah, good question. So I'm in IT. I've been in IT for 12 years. And so, a lot of IT folks were hybrid before COVID, and I had always said to my wife that most IT jobs can be done full-time remote. So when COVID hit, like everyone else, went full-time remote, and life really for me, when COVID happened, I went full-time remote, and I have stayed full-time remote. And so I did change companies, but I transitioned to working from home, and me personally, I'm an introvert, so I don't need all the in-office interaction personally, but I have really enjoyed working from home, and COVID, changed a lot of things, obviously. But for me, it was mostly positive. I don't know. No one in my family was sick, and my wife did get COVID. I did not. But it wasn't serious. It was sort of a bad cold, I guess. So and my wife transitioned as well to she was full-time in the office, and she transitioned to hybrid work. So she works from home Wednesday through Friday. And so it certainly changed things, not necessarily for the worse, but definitely changed things for sure in our lives. And then today, so I am working on my Ph.D. at Kansas State University, and typically you do at that level anyway. You do classes in person, but K-State transferred, like all schools, transferred degrees to fully online, or and a lot of classes were transitioned to asynchronous, which synchronous just means that you're meeting. Everyone meets at a specific time, and asynchronous means that there is no set time, right, to meet. There might be a Zoom session, but it's recorded, and you can watch at your own convenience. And so the PhD program that I'm attending is fully online, asynchronous, and so the transition, the COVID transition has really changed a lot of things in this country.
So let's get a handle on exactly what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids, 12-year-olds,
Sure.
career day, and one of the kids is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
So yeah, I'm in IT security, and just to keep things simple, my job is to, in a virtual world, protect the company from bad guys, and make sure that folks have only the access they need to do their job.
So talk to me about what you wanted to be when you were 12 years old. What was your dream job?
Good question. So, honestly, most of my family is, or a lot of my family is in law enforcement. And so, growing up, I wanted to be a police officer.
That's exactly what I wanted to be when I was a kid. I remember watching Chips and I thought how cool it would be. And then, of course, later on they had the actual show Cops, and I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. It was a little different from what I saw as a kid.
Mm,
So talk to me a little bit about the building blocks, the foundations of IT and storytelling and being in the
mm,
military. What were all of these
mhm.
seeds that were sown in you? Like, where were you born and raised, and what were these seeds that were sown that became who you are today?
Yeah, so born and raised in Marshalltown, Iowa. I personally, years ago, when I was approaching the end of high school, I did not have any ambition to go to college. To me, it seemed, I mean, everyone was pushing you to go to college. My mom certainly wanted me to, but it just seemed like a waste of money to me. I could not see the ROI. All I saw was debt. I mean, I wasn't a star athlete or a really great academic student, and so I didn't have any path to college financially anyway. So I joined the military, which was something I wanted to do anyway. My grandfather was my hero, my mom's dad, and he fought in World War II, and he was a owned a farm. He was a farmer down in southeast Iowa, and spent a lot of summers on the farm with my grandpa when I was a kid, and so um, I really want to do anything my grandpa was doing, really. So, I had kind of thought maybe, Joe, that farming might be my future at some point, maybe. But at any rate, so yeah, I joined the Navy. My grandpa was in the Army, but I joined the Navy. Wanted to see the world, and I, um, you know, spent 4 years in the service. I was stationed in San Diego from '99 until 2003. So I was in during September 11th. Um, and I had certain dreams that are things that I want to accomplish in the military and the Navy, but it's not always easy to maneuver and do things that you want to do career wise. The Navy has its own goals, right, and its its own thoughts about where you should go, and our the Navy and my goals just didn't align, and so I thought, well, I'm going to get out, and so I did. Just did 4 years, and I came back home um, after the Navy, and my grandfather asked me if I was going to go to college, and I said no, I do not plan on going to college. He said, "What are you going to do then?" And I didn't have an answer. I wasn't sure, Joe, and I said, Grandpa, I'm not positive. I'm still kind of thinking about it. And he said, "Well, don't think too long." So, yeah, I called him a few days later, and I said, "Well, how about I help you on the farm?" And so uh, I got into trucking actually. So for those who don't know, um, most farmers have semis. It's the best way to move product from the field to the farm or the elevator or wherever it's going. So I started driving a semi, and I did that, Joe, for 12 years. I trucked over the road and really enjoyed it, honestly. It's a lot of freedom, and you get to see the country. Obviously, beautiful. The United States is amazing. So anyway, I did that, and I really did enjoy it. But I had some medical issues. I had back surgery, and the surgeon told me that I needed to change careers. So, well, what am I going to do at 32 years old? And so, I decided, well, I guess I could go to college, I suppose. And so that's what I did. Went to college, and I got a degree in IT, and that's how I got my start in the IT world. And so the storytelling piece, I I lived the typical sailor life, and so I would meet veterans from other branches after I got out, and we would always tell stories, right, about being in the service, and the different lifestyle and different branches, Army, Marines, Air Force, etc. And I found that my stories were entertaining. People would laugh, and I heard a lot of times, Joe, people tell me, um, you know, man, you Navy guys, you guys always have the greatest stories. And so, I think, the Navy is obviously very different from other branches. And so, I mean, that's part of it. Right. But I thought, to myself, as I would tell these stories over and over again, and just saw the entertainment value. And of course, I try to be funny and tell the stories in a funny way. So, I sort of recognized early on that maybe I have a knack for storytelling, and a lot of times I would be with people, like for example, my brother. I have a younger brother, Sean. He would say, "Hey Jeff, tell that one story." And I would say, well, I mean, really, it's your story. You should tell it. And my brother would say, yeah, but you do such a better job than I do at telling stories. So, fast forward a few years ago, Joe. My wife had a service dog many years ago, a therapy dog, I should say, and she wanted to get into that again. But you just never know, right? If a dog is going to be good at something like that. So, we were looking at buy another dog, and we discussed that, right? Possibly pursuing therapy work, and so we went and bought her, and when we picked her up, the um, the breeder said that she was the runt in a litter of 10, that's a lot of dogs. And
Yeah.
so we were like, oh, wow. And she said that the breeder said she was so small that she couldn't get her mother's milk, right? That her siblings would run in, and they would get it all, and there wasn't any left over for her. So they tried to bottle feed her, Joe, but she was so small she couldn't drink from a bottle. So they had to get a syringe and feed her that way. And the breeder said that she almost passed away. She almost didn't make it, and we were like, "Oh no!" Right? And of course, we were grateful, that she fought and survived. So we get home with her, Joe, and and we had her for about 2 or 3 days, and she was getting really really sick. And so we called the vet, of course, and we ran a stool sample in, and things were getting really bad. This was the next day, and she was, fading quickly. And so I called the vet, and I said, hey, what did you guys find in that stool sample? And they said on the phone, because we live out in the country, they said, well, when can you be here? That's all they said. So obviously it's not good news, right, Joe? And so I said, as soon as I can. So we get in there, and they told us that she had a parvovirus. And puppies don't typically survive that disease. And so we were told by the vet she probably wouldn't make it, and he was really sorry, of course, and they do their best. But they had previously, over the course of his practice, Joe, they had 5 or 6 puppies come in that were, and her name's Maya, our dog, our therapy dog, Maya's age at that time, which was 8 weeks, maybe 9 weeks, and 8.5, right in there. And they also had the same virus count that she had, and none of them survived. So odds weren't great. And so we had said, well, look, money isn't going to be an issue. Just please do whatever it takes. And obviously, she survived, and so when we of course continued, and she's a fighter. She's tough, and so we started the training, and we could tell that she had an aptitude right away. Very smart, and she also went through the commands and was a natural, essentially, Joe. So my wife and I were talking, and we said, boy, our goal, right? Because my wife is a University of Iowa alumni. Our goal it would be to get in and see kids at Stead Family Children's Hospital in Iowa City. And my wife said, her story would be really inspiring for children. So her and I wrote a children's book about Maya's story. And we did accomplish that goal. And we do see children at Stead Family Children's Hospital every other Friday. And we take that children's book with us, Joe, and we hand it out for free to children age appropriate, right? So little kids and probably up to 7, 8, 9 years old. And it's essentially, Joe, a book about how she struggled and almost passed away, 2 times in just her first 8 weeks of life, and how she fought and overcame those challenges and is now a healthy dog today. And we wrote it, Joe, just in hopes to inspire kids, right, who are also struggling. And a lot of those kids are battling cancer. So that was essentially the heart and the thought behind the children's book. And I wrote another book, Joe. It'll be published later this summer, probably in August. And that book is called Frozen Frontlines, and it's about Alaskan Malamutes as well. Not any of my dogs, just kind of the breed in general. And the Alaskan Malamute, Joe, is the only Native American dog breed, and they served in both World Wars I and II. World War I, they served in Alaska and in some mountainous area in France. And then in World War II, they served all over the place. But the book is focused on World War II. It's a historical fiction, and the Malamute played several roles, but they're essentially a heavy freighting dog. So I think the best analogy that I've heard is they're like the draft horse of the dog breed. So they're like Huskies, which are cousins to Malamutes, were bred for speed and pulling things as fast as they could. Malamutes were bred to pull heavy loads and not at great speed. So they're slow. They're not. You wouldn't use them in a dog race, Joe, but they are very, very effective sled dogs at pulling a lot of weight. And so, I've thought for many years, because I purchased my first Malamute in 2005, and after I got home from the Navy, and I fell in love with the breed, Joe, and said this is the only dog breed I'll own, and it is the only dog breed I've owned since. And so doing some research, and I stumbled on the work the breed did in World War II, and I've thought for many years that story should be told, and I was sort of waiting on someone else to tell it, Joe, and no one did, obviously. So after the children's book, I thought, well, I'll take a stab at this, and so I researched for about 2 years. I hired a guy to help me. He did the War Archive research, and put together this book, and it's essentially, while it focuses on the Malamute, it's an attempt to really show what all service dogs did in World War II. It is a story, I hope anyway, that shows people that there are a lot of dogs that served in World War II, and so many that the military ran out of dogs, Joe, and they sent newsletters out all over the United States to ask people to donate dogs for the Dogs for Defense program, is what it was called. And so that's essentially what the book is about. And it's a story about a young man, who was raised around sled dogs, gets drafted into World War II, and thinks his path is headed, somewhere else. And, fate, so to speak, brings him back into, the sled dog life, and he serves in Greenland, and which is frozen, by the way, if people don't know. um, Greenland is not green. It's snow and ice, and Iceland is is green. So he goes to serve there with his sled dogs, and has several adventures, and it's loosely based on the life of Dave Armstrong, who just give a shout out to that man, who served in World War II with a team of Huskies. And he served in Newfoundland, Canada. And he wrote a book about his life, called Memoirs of World War II. And fascinating guy. And so I read his book and pulled some inspiration from there. But it's really a book, I hope anyway, that brings a lot of attention to just the war dogs in general of World War II, because many of them, Joe, were euthanized after World War II. And I don't want to beat anyone up or speak ill of the military, because it was the first time in our nation's history that we really used dogs in that degree, right? And so they all come home. A lot of them have PTSD, and they didn't really know what to do with them, right? And so the dogs that could be rehomed in their mind, right, in the Army's mind, were, and there was a few camps, is what they call them, that these dogs came home to, and they tried to rehome them. A big one was Fort Robinson, Nebraska. But most of them. So there was about 5,000 dogs that returned to Fort Robinson, and over like 1,500 or so were rehomed, but the rest of them were euthanized. And so,
wow.
The Alaskan Malamute almost went extinct after World War II.
Wow.
And so,
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, no, I was just going to say, that's another. People don't know that, right? And so, as another kind of component to this book was, to call out the Saluki, the Basenji, and the Alaskan Malamute are the oldest dog breeds on Earth.
Yeah,
and it would have been a real tragedy to lose the breed, and so wanted to point that out as well in the book, and make sure that people understood that, because I don't think a lot of people know.
Yeah, no, you've done a wonderful job orchestrating a great overview and answered a lot of questions that I was going to get into with your backstory and the book. So I'm curious if anybody wants to pick it up, if they want a copy, if they want to reach out, they have questions, they want to know more, where do they go?
Yeah, both books are on Amazon. The Frozen Frontlines will be soon. Maya the Malamute, A Spark of Courage, is our children's book, and that's on Amazon as well. We have a foundation as well called Maya's Spark of Courage Foundation, and that foundation is solely built and designed. We created it, my wife and I, to give books to children, fighting serious health issues in hospitals. So to kind of frame this, Joe, I don't know, people probably don't know, but libraries at children's hospitals, they don't get a lot of money unless it's donated, and most of their books are donated, or folks, individuals donate books, and so that's what our foundation does, is it donates not just our book, but other books with similar stories to children's hospitals all over the United States.
Excellent. Well, I will put all these links in the show notes. Jeff, it's so great to connect. I love your story, the wonderful work you're doing, and continued success with everything.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time. Looking to get new clients to your business through cold calling or email marketing? At WWII, they envision a world in which small and big companies have equal chances to win new customers in the market. Their purpose is to bring parity and reduce the gap between large and small firms with the help of their cold calling and cold email marketing services. Use the code JOEDIMINO10 at www.agencyyy.org/coldcallingjoe.php or www.agencyyy.org/emailmarketingjoe.php to get 10% off your first order. This is Joe Dimino of Neon Jazz and Famous Interviews, and I stand behind Agency Y to meet your business dreams.